I don't think it'd do too much more than corrupt you if you did keep up with it. And I think it's just best to sort of knock it off. If a person's hell-bent on leather, is the old term, to go on in spite of all this, and go on in and just mess up their life, mess up their testimony, and perhaps move on out early and hit an early judgment, you can't stop them sometimes. If they're determined to do it, you can't stop them. A psychiatrist says if somebody's determined to commit suicide, you can't hardly stop them. And it's going to take the Holy Spirit of God to do something. There have been enough lessons learned now in a couple of 3 weeks of this stuff that I don't guess you really need too much more on the thing. Amy Grant, she's a Christian rock star. And Amy Grant, she's a woman that dresses and acts and sings songs that would fit right in as far as rock is concerned. The rock and roll groups wouldn't have too much trouble with her. And that's true of Andre Crouch and the rest of the gang. There's a list here, and in the list here it talks about Christian rock, and it talks about heavy metal Christian rock. Can you imagine that? Heavy metal Christian rock. Heavy metal Christian rock. And there's a group out called Petra. There's a group out called Jerusalem. If you look at the jacket over Berean there, when you go in the door and look at the group called Jerusalem there, you'd think you was looking at something out at Camelot and had to do with the rock and roll bunch. Artie told me he was out at Camelot one time and he was looking at some records, I think on Bach, or some tapes on Bach. And along come, they have the thing rock and then Christian rock and then on to the classical type of thing. And this girl come through there and didn't even realize she was in the Christian rock section until she began to look at the titles of the song. They all look alike. The group called Petra, they got a song on that's called God Gave Us Rock and Roll. Heavy metal, supposedly Christian rock band, God Gave Us Rock and Roll. Do you believe that? Not for a second. Not for a second at all. These rock stars like Bob Dylan. And they got Bob Dylan now as a Christian rock singer. And Bob Dylan, he's a fellow that has a hard time smiling. Bob Dylan is a fellow that in a write-up in Time magazine, and again it's very recent, within just a week or two. Let's see, be Time magazine, November of '85. And this fellow's been involved in this thing since 1962 to '85, been in it for 22, 23 years. And they show one picture of him called a rare grin. Can you imagine that? I mean, someone like myself, you take my picture and you probably even find a smile in me. But a fellow that's got making millions of dollars, like Elton John, talking about revolution, well, in 1977, I mean, singing songs in revolution, the fellow goes to the bank with something like, I think, $55 million in 1 year. And talking about revolution. These guys are the biggest bunch of phonies and liars you ever saw in your life. A rare grin on the guy in 1975. Incredible that such a radical change in his style could take place in just 2 years, 62 to 64. From the plain-spoken beauty of Blowing in the Wind to the diabolical and delirious poetry of Like a Rolling Stone. And he says it's just an amphetamine rush of elusive imaginary and electric boogie, forced by will and fused by will in some dark, unknowable, divining spirit. Listen to this. In life, well, I mean, I feel like I fall short in just about everything except in music. In music, I'm probably a driven person. True. I always feel like someone's cracking the whip. True. Somebody or something. True. The devil. I never felt like I was searching for anything. I've always felt that I've stumbled into things, led of the devil. I never went to the holy mountain to find the lost soul that is supposed to be a part of me. This guy is listed as a Christian rock musician, Bob Dylan. I never went to the holy mountain to find the lost soul that is supposed to be part of me. I don't believe in that stuff, and I don't feel like a person has to search for anything. I feel like it's all right in front. If he's a rock star, then you can have him. You can have the whole bunch from top to bottom. They got a bunch called jazz rock fusion. They got Southern gospel. They got pop top, 40 sound, Amy Grant, Sandy Patty. To look at her jacket on her music there, it would appear that she might be one of the better ones. She doesn't look quite as bad as Amy Grant, but she's just out and out Pentecostal, and that's the type of music she has. Amy Grant, her testimony is that she's not a Bible thumper. Her music's more like Elton John. She's the great #1 Christian singer of the day. When she sings with gyrations. Now, a young lady told me this, not a man, And she said, I don't see how anybody can listen to the words she says with all the gyrations she makes. If a lady would say that and have, now a Christian lady now has some sense, would have that kind of deductions, what do you think a fellow would, how do you think that would work on a fella? The jacket they have of her over there has to do with her in a leopard skin jacket. You know what she is? She's advertising for the Antichrist. You know what she's advertising? She's advertising that black spot. That kiss, that leopard's kiss, the mark of the beast. She's just advertising just a couple of years ahead of the time. The mystery of iniquity doth already work. She's an advertisement for him. Andre Crouch, you know what he is? He's a fellow who was arrested a couple of years ago on the L.A. freeway for cocaine. They arrested the fellow for driving bad and found out the guy had cocaine in his system. That's the type of Christian rock stars that you have these days. And if you take any of them, middle of the road type of thing, Joni Eareckson, Dave Boyer, you name it. Doesn't make any difference. I mean, all you have to do is get on Christian rock. You can get on, they call this middle of the road stuff easy listening rock. You can take that stuff and it'll take you to the pop top, southern gospel, jazz rock, hillbilly rock, gospel rock, new wave, heavy metal. It'll take you all the way out, man. I mean, it'll be disaster with the words, supposedly Christian words. It'll be like somebody who gets on marijuana. They get on marijuana, and marijuana is just a start of a path that's going to take you on to coke and take you on to horse. That's exactly what it's going to do. It's going to wind you up on heroin. And so the rock music is no good. The lives of the performers are no good. The lessons that you and I learn are that it's a disaster for you, a disaster for anybody. It's always been a disaster. It's going to keep on being a disaster. And in this book here are listed 115 men and women that have gone out in all kind of unusual ways. 115. Here's the section here. And this section here, by their fruits they shall know them. The Lord Jesus Christ said, by their fruits ye shall know them. Dead and gone, rock and roll obituaries. I counted up 150 names. And the thing begins, and it's in alphabetical order. Belushi's in there. And it goes all the way back here. Janis Joplin's in here. Elvis Presley's in here. All these guys. Sid Vicious is in there. Dennis Wilson's in there. And goes all the way out page 14 pages. And 115 names. That's not even including Ricky Nelson, who might have been freebasing on cocaine when the plane caught on fire. They say he wasn't, but he had cocaine in his blood. And John Bonham and all these guys that they've gone out in very unusual ways. Mama Cass Elliott, she went out. Brian Epstein, he went out. Drug overdose. Some very unusual ways they went out. Elvis Presley went out at 42. Let's see here. He had an obsession with death, an irrational hatred for any singing star that he considered to be a threat to him. And when he went out, his Colonel Parker felt as though it really doesn't make any difference, and it's true. All it did was immortalize the fella and make a big old hero out of the guy, and they went on and keep on. They've made more money off of him since he died than before. And in this book here, it has to do with Presley and how that when he wound up, and like I said, I think it was maybe 10,000 pills. I mean, it's uppers, downers type of thing, and it was just one after another, until finally, I mean, the guy went out at age 42. Last 5 years of his life, it was just nothing but absolutely living on drugs, and the fellow gained weight, try and lose weight, try and get himself up, get himself down, and it was just a complete disaster. Well, a word to the wise is sufficient, and like I said, we'll knock it off because I don't want to go in too deep into some stuff they can't even they can't print, and I can't even read to you what they printed. I'll sum up what one of the young ladies in the Christian school summed things up as. What's wrong with rock music? The lyrics. The lyrics are very sickening and gross. What's wrong with rock music? The likenesses. The way the rock groups dress, very satanic. What's wrong with rock music? The loss of control. You lose all control under its influence. What's wrong with rock music? Leading away from God. Rock music doesn't make you want to serve God. What's wrong with it? It links you to drugs, etc., and so on. What's wrong with it? Lennon's confession said that he wanted the whole world to use drugs. What's wrong with it? Lives of the performers, immoral, shamefulness, wicked, satanic, suicides, What's wrong with it? The lineup in music, the history of music is rock music comes in when it's at its very lowest. What you have a situation that has taken over our country. It came in under Alan Freed, and his name is spelled this way. Now, I don't know, this is a typical Jewish first name, and this is a typical Jewish spelling of the way you'd pronounce that. And I don't know what his nationality was. It really doesn't make any difference. The fellow's hit the judgment a long time ago. He brought the thing up in Cleveland, Ohio, and he brought the stuff in there, and those people, the Jewish folk, they're disobedient and gainsaying people. Romans chapter number 10. They'd do anything for a buck, and especially a lost one. I mean, they have no scruples there. And so whether he was or whether he wasn't, he went on to New York and supposedly made heaps and heaps of money, got caught in a scandal, payola, and he got caught in that payola scandal there, and he wound up at age 42, same as Elvis. He wound up, the fellow that brought it in, he wound up broke, drunk, and dead at age 42. The king of rock and roll, Elvis Presley, a doper and dead, overdose, age 42. And that's true just through and through. These lessons I brought you because, sad to say, years ago when we started the Christian school, one of the reasons we started it was in the 6th grade, Glenda had problems at Delroy. She was mocked because she would not participate. Country school. Becky Brown had problems at Avondale, 3rd grade. One of the kids had problems, 1st grade. Expose them to it. They say take their minds and bend their minds while they're young. One of the reasons I brought it was because down in country school, Sandy Valley School, I'm sure it's no different in the other schools around. Perry School a few years ago, they opened up their school session, opens on rock music. Those poor kids have got to try and do something living under rock music. You talk about an insane bunch of people, man. I don't know who's responsible for it, but they're completely, totally insane, and you can tell them I said so. Public schools started with tax support in 67 and 1647 in the state of Massachusetts. What was the purpose? The purpose was to teach children to read so they could read the Bible. And 3 centuries later, and little over, 3 centuries later, the Supreme Court ruled it's unconstitutional and to have required Bible reading and prayer in public schools. And they've taken out Bible reading, which is what public schools were started for, and they've replaced Bible reading and prayer with the rottenest bunch of stuff that anybody could ever be exposed to, and they expose your children to that stuff 5 days a week, and everybody buys the thing, and the kids are put under such fabulous and phenomenal peer pressure. It's an absolute miracle if anybody makes it through, and that's what they've got to go through. Now take the whole bunch of them and close them down. Now take the whole bunch of them and fire them, all of them. Now take the whole bunch of them, they ought to send them off to the kook house. They're taking their kids and your kids and destroying them before they ever get a chance to get started. Bow for prayer.